Hello everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Newman Bond. My name is Jack Schaefer. I'm a 2020 alumnus of Newman University. I'm currently working here as well, and I'm here today with Assistant Professor of Digital Design, Emily Ritter, and she's going to show us a very cool, very fun, simple animation today. But before that, we're going to go through a couple questions as well. So, Emily, just to get things started, where did you get started? How did you find out you were interested in art? Has it always been a thing? And kind of what's your background?
So I was always interested in art. That's kind of like a cliche answer. But like when I was a kid, I would make art. I was very into it. In college, so I went to Wichita State. It was between creative writing and visual art. And after taking classes, I decided creative writing wasn't for me, grammar, that kind of stuff, and visual arts was my path. I think visual arts was also very present in my life because my uncle and aunt on my mom's side are both artists too, and they're actually both professors, so that was an influence, I'm sure.
Sure.
But I got my Bachelor of Arts at Wichita State, emphasis in printmaking, and I like to say that printmaking is like it is the ancestor of graphic design. Mm-hmm. And then between undergrad and graduate school, I did an internship at Women's Studio Workshop in upstate New York. It's a printmaking, ceramics, book arts, papermaking art center. Mm-hmm. And you're able to work with and live with other female artists. The best experience I've ever had, because I was able to not only just like learn from all these different artists, but also like see their practice, see their creativity. It was wonderful. I encourage all of my students to do internships. And then after undergrad, or after my internship, I went to graduate school at Arizona State University, emphasis in printmaking again. Although I kind of worked wherever I wanted to, did whatever I wanted to, floated between mediums. I feel like that's usually what happens in graduate school.
Sure.
And graduated 2018, and then stayed in the area doing community college teaching and came back to Kansas a couple years ago.
Gotcha. And when you came back to Kansas, was this your first gig back, or how did you find Newman University?
So I grew up here, so I always knew about Newman.
Okay.
I had some friends actually in the nursing program when I was, I think, an undergrad actually. So I was familiar enough with Newman. When I moved back to Kansas, I actually got my first full-time job teaching was at Independence Community College. Okay. And then I didn't like living such a rural place. I found out about the job opening, the digital design position, and I wanted to come home. It was nice I wanted to be back in Wichita.
Sure.
I applied for it, it worked out, and I came back. So I was in Kansas for 2 years prior to coming here.
Gotcha.
So Phoenix to rural Kansas and then back to Wichita.
Yeah, and then in between upstate New York, right?
Upstate New York, yeah.
So you've been all over
I've
the place.
been all over.
That's awesome. So about the simple animation that you'll show us a little bit later, so what level of art is this? Like, how advanced does a student have to be, does someone have to be to actually be able to do that on their own?
I think it depends on the individual. Everything depends on context, right? If a student is familiar with Adobe Animate, they could use it. If they have I'm going to show you Adobe Animate, that program. If they're really good at following tutorials, they could do that too. But if they're completely new to using any kind of digital program, it might be a little bit higher up. But if a student's familiar with the program, it's super easy. So I'm just going to be showing you like a really basic animation.
Yeah, do you have any recommendations for potential students who are interested in digital design but maybe haven't quite broke through to digital and are doing different forms? Like, what's your advice to them?
Take classes.
Take classes.
Sign up for my classes.
Yeah.
So next semester there's digital media and culture. Yeah, digital media and culture, where you'll learn Photoshop, Illustrator, Animate, all those different programs. So it's kind of like a survey of all the programs that you would use for digital design.
Sure. And that starts at a basic level. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yep, and like digital design isn't just animation. So with the digital design program, and you probably were going to ask about this, but I'll jump to it.
Sure.
With the digital design program, you'll be learning not only like graphic design, I call it graphic design on steroids. So graphic design, so learning the elements and principles of design, how to design, but also motion graphics, so animation, whether it be like a complicated character animation or just like the animations you see on Instagram, like ads of just like moving parts.
Sure.
And web design, so UX, UI, so user experience, user interface. So a lot of different things that aren't just graphic design.
Yeah, and with all those different aspects, what is your personal favorite? Do you have, or maybe even a personal, more challenging version or medium that not medium because it's all digital, but
within the digital design.
Yeah, within the digital design realm.
Learning animation, so this has been the new component for me. That has been really fun to figure out all the different things you can do with it. And I like to kind of push and see what I can do with it. Okay, so I learned the basics. How can I like mess with it and toy with it? Mm-hmm. So example, 3D printing. I got really into 3D printing in grad school. And I was like, okay, how can I make these really delicate bits with a 3D printer? And the 3D printers we had, I couldn't do it because that's just not how it functioned. But I was like, okay, I need to find a way to do that. And I was able to. So with animation, okay, how can I tweak it and do use combine hands-on materials, so like prints, because I'm a printmaker. How can I use prints and animation and make these really cool things together? Yeah. Haven't quite gotten there yet because I've been busy teaching, but that's on the to-do list.
Sure. And with that being said, a good segue is that the most rewarding for you, or what do you find personally? Do you have a type of? It seems like that's a little bit harder than some others, but do you have a specific type of art or task in your digital design work that's just, when you get it done, it just feels amazing, and you're proud of? I'm sure you're proud of your work all the time, as you should be, as any artist should be, but anything where it's just particularly, you're just extra proud of what you just did, whether it's hard or just intricate or whatever it might be.
Right. I think with animation, the most rewarding part is seeing the animation at the end.
Yeah.
So with my digital media and culture class last semester, the animation project was honestly the most fun one, and they made some of the coolest stuff I saw them made all semester.
Was this the one where the cat takes we'll have to put that up there.
She made she drew each slide.
Oh, really?
Because there's ways you can rig it, and I'm not going to show it in this. Take my class. But
there you go. Little teaser there.
Sign up for digital media.
Exactly.
Become a digital design major. But you can rig animations, make the structure of it that you can move. Mm-hmm. But she drew each individual panel, so there was an extra layer of attention to detail, craftsmanship, going the extra mile, and it paid off. And usually when you go the extra mile, especially with artwork, anything, but within art, if you go the extra mile, it pays off, because it's wow, that looks really good. But yeah, seeing the animations at the end is always the most fun part, even the little stuff that I play around with. It's fun to see the animations at the end. With my artwork in general, it's seeing the finished product. But,
yeah, sure. I figured that would be similar to the answer, but what kind of changes to the art game, to the digital design game, have 2D and I imagine 3D art adds another layer to how difficult it is? Or do you have a preference in 2D or 3D, or what is the disparity there? How much harder is it to design something three-dimensional? Or
it's just a different thought process. So with 2D, it's all flat, right?
Sure.
On the computer, it's all flat, right? You have 3D modeling, but it's still on a flat screen.
Yeah.
But when you're working in 3D, whether it's 3D modeling or working with actual sculptures, you just need to think about how it works in space. Mm-hmm. So it just adds that other dimension
there you go.
to working. With animation, 2D versus 3D, it just adds more depth to it. So 2D animations are going to look more flat, more potentially cartoonish, versus having things that look 3D will add that extra depth to it that could make it look a little bit more realistic.
Sure.
There's even stop motion animation that you could do too.
Yeah.
It's just a different way of making, and just a different way of thinking about how to design it and what you want the look to be.
Yeah, and how long do those projects, the last semester of digital design students doing those projects, did that take all semester? Is that what they're working on? Or how long would it take?
It was pretty short.
It was pretty short?
I think I gave them 2 or 3 weeks to do it. So it was a lot of crunch time. I think it was about 3 weeks that they did it.
Yeah.
But of course, if you have more time, you can make more intricate animations. Their assignment was to make a GIF. So just like a short little clip. So it was easy for them to do it in 2 weeks. But if you wanted to make like a 3-minute movie, it would take a while.
Sure.
So like all semester.
Yeah. Well, speaking of animations, would you be interested in showing us?
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay, so we're going to be working in Adobe Animate. And I'm just going to show you a very, very simple animation. So in Adobe Animate, I can change the background color, which I like to do. Working on a white background, in my mind, it kills creativity. I'm really into like pink and warm colors, so I'm just going to do that. And the layout, of course, I highly encourage everyone to take digital media and culture and learn how to do this more deeply. But in Adobe Animate, you have your not timetable, but like the
Timeline.
Timeline. There's a better word. I'm blanking on it right now.
Sure.
But you have your timeline, and then you have layers, like the workflow you will learn about in that class. But for this animation, I am just going to do a bouncing ball. That is a square.
That would be hard to bounce. A square.
So do's and don'ts of animation. Make sure you know what you're doing.
There you go.
So I'm going to do a bouncing ball. So you have your shape. And what I really like about Animate is you could do like a vector image. Vectors like having anchor points rather than it be a raster. Take digital media and culture and you'll learn about that too. But you can have like a vector image that you create on your own and then you can animate it. You could rig it and do all that stuff. But I'm just going to do a simple little bouncing ball. So you have your shape, and then this is the part of the timeline that you're on. So I'm going to go to the next section and I'm going to insert a keyframe. And then I'm doing this manually, kind of sort of like the cat eating the pie one.
Okay.
So I'm going to just move this down just a smidge. And then I'm going to go to the next frame and I'm going to insert a keyframe. Oh, I need to turn on onion skin. So onion skin is where you can see where the last thing is.
Gotcha.
And then I'm just going to move it down just a little bit. And then I'm just going to keep doing that until I get to the bottom. So like animation is kind of some tedious work. There's workarounds for this. It's a little more complicated for what we're doing right now. Mm-hmm. But it's a lot of like repeating what you're doing and making sure you're following your steps. That was a thing that kind of popped up last semester, was making sure that you follow each step and you know what steps you're going through in order, because if you don't, you could miss something and it'll mess up your animation later on.
Sure. And I know the Adobe suite is high-end, one of the higher-end versions, at least for video editing, like Premiere Pro and all that as well. But like, for example, are there programs that could make this easier, that where you wouldn't have to where you could like just drag it to where you want the endpoint to be and then it will create those for you? Or is that not a thing? That's all the animator, that's all the person making these individual frames.
In this program, you could do that.
Okay.
There are workarounds. You create a tween. It's a lot for what we're doing.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was just curious.
There's totally those workarounds, and like rigging, so like making that skeletal structure type thing I was talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. Rigging your animations so that you can like move arms and stuff. You can do that in this. And you can like make a path so it moves on a path.
Oh, cool.
You can do all of those things.
Sure.
The bouncing ball is going to be boring now compared to all of that stuff.
Well, that's okay.
It's going to be cool.
It's still going to be cool.
It's going to be a really cool bouncing ball. So with high end, and like I don't work in the industry, I don't really know what's what, but from what I understand, there's programs like I think Maya and Visme that are like the high end animation, like Disney, Pixar uses those.
Those
are like animation. You could do stuff kind of similar to that in this, but not to like that level. Like it's thousands of dollars. With Adobe, they've changed to, in the last, 10 years or something, they've changed to the model of subscription. You pay for the cloud.
Yeah, I've noticed that myself.
There's pros and cons to that, but it's nice because then you can, like, if you only want it for a month, you only have to pay like $30. There's student discounts, there's teacher discounts, but then you have access to all those programs, which is nice. I have cloud, I love it, and I have access to all the cool stuff. And I'm just
we're almost to the
slowly
we're almost to the bouncing part. I'm excited.
Creating tension.
Which way will you make it bounce? We'll see.
And then so I'm gonna make the last one, and then I'm gonna bring it down just a little bit, and I'm gonna do this thing called a squish. I'm gonna make the ball squish.
Oh, nice.
And then, so I did the very last frame, I squished it, and then I'm going to go the second to last frame and stretch it. Maybe
now, why are those turning green? Are you doing
Oh, it's because I went back one.
Oh, okay.
It's just what the program's
doing.
Okay,
gotcha.
Yeah. Now, I may have been a little too detailed with this, but let's see. So, like, in Animate, if you're like, okay, I don't know where I'm at, what do I want to do? I think it's also because of the colors I chose that made it green, because usually I do, like, a red ball, and it's pink. I think it's green because I made a blue ball. I'm going to press play and just see what I got. It bounced. I can tweak it, but I'm going to copy it. So I'm going to select all of my frames. I'm going to, and the mouse always messes with me. Going to, I usually work on my laptop.
Yeah.
So the keyboard.
Not your
there
favorite.
There we go. Copy. We can cut that out. Reverse frames. Copy reverse frames, and then paste. So then you have, I just like did the same thing and just like put on either ends of each other. And then you press play, and you have a bouncing ball.
Oh, nice.
And then you can just copy and paste, and then you have just a bouncing ball.
Sure.
Over and over and over again. So I'm just going to do that real quick. So we have a longer, animation. And then you can start like tweaking it, making it curved, or doing whatever you want to do to it. There's a lot of options of what you can do.
Sure.
Why are you not doing what I want you to do? So like one of the challenges with Animate, especially like with all of the Adobe products, this is my opinion, is that there's updates so often that things that I'm like, I know this, they'll update it, and I'll be like, what is that?
Oh, so you don't necessarily recognize what you used to use, or they change where the button was.
So you're kind of always relearning.
Yeah, gotta love technology.
And like a lot of the stuff that they're like adding is very cool. There we go.
Sure.
A lot of the stuff that they're adding is very cool. There we go, bouncing ball.
Nice.
There you go, quick little short animation, and that took what, like 5 minutes to do? But last semester they added generative AI.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm sure AI has changed the digital art world just as much as it's changed everything else, right?
And there's lots of controversy about it.
Sure.
In Photoshop they added generative AI, and this is while I was teaching that class, Digital Media and Culture, which everyone should sign up for. But
what do you think of as an artist of AI potentially? I've heard a lot of stealing content, stealing artists, like taking money away from artists. What's your opinion on that?
With AI, I think it's complicated. It's a new tool which freaks people out, which I get. But it's a new tool. Like Photoshop was a new tool. Like the computer was a new tool.
Yeah,
it's a new thing to use. I think it's an extra level of new where we're gonna have to figure out how to navigate it. With generative AI for Photoshop, I think being mindful, like I know there's a bunch of stuff about like scrapping images from other artists,
sure,
which I can understand why that would be a concern. But for what it is, I think it's a nice tool as long as you're honest about what it is. Just like ChatGPT and like using stuff for writing, you need to be honest about using that tool and not rely on that tool to write papers for you, but use it to brainstorm or help you think about things. But AI can be wrong. Like if you use it to write a paper, like
and you don't proofread it, because some people who would be doing that might not be the type of people who want to read through all that.
So don't use it to write your papers.
Yes, don't do that. Or to make the Riverfest logo. Oh wait, that already happened.
That was the thing that happened.
I know. I'm just
so
kidding.
this is my hill that I got on. When I
let's
saw
hear
that
it.
happening, I was like, no. He's just a really good graphic designer. He didn't use AI. And I just kept looking at it. I'm like, that's not an AI artifact. That's the toad's ear or the frog's ear.
You were kind of
I got
making it make sense in your head.
It's not AI. And then I found out that it was AI. And I'm like, oh. But like he was honest about it. And they knew that he used AI. So I think a lot of people that got upset about that just didn't understand.
Yeah. And that's actually what made me bring it up, is when you said being honest about it, because I remember that story coming out. I remember that story about the Riverfest logo coming out, and people. What is that?
I think they're doing maintenance somewhere.
Oh no. Okay. All right. Well, very quickly, do you have any last things to add then, before they get doing maintenance again?
Sign up for digital design classes. Take art classes.
Yeah.
Make
that's
art.
awesome.
Art school. Art's fun. It could be your extra fun class. It could be your new career. I don't know, try things. Like, you never know what you're gonna like. Just try it out.
I know this makes me want to take one of your classes, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. And hopefully you do as well. Thank you so much for listening and watching the Newman Bond. This was Emily Ritter, Assistant Professor of Digital Design here at Newman University. And I'm Jack Schaefer. Tune in every first and third Tuesday of the month for the newest episodes of the Newman Bond. Thank you so much.
It's like, what? I have no idea.
I get a lot more blessings out of that.
Really fun experience.
Really the Newman experience.